I still remember the sound my daughter made when the sky turned green. It was not a scream. I wish, in some strange way, that it had been a scream, because a scream I could have understood. Instead, my 3-year-old daughter looked up at the bright flash burning a hole in the dirt, not far from where she stood, and she laughed. Let me start from the beginning. We had been living on Kesvarn colony for 2 years when the ships came. They appeared in the sky one morning, dark and silent, and everyone on the ground stopped what they were doing to look up. Nobody screamed. Nobody ran. We had been trained for this moment. The rules were simple. Stay calm, stay visible, and do not do anything that looks like a threat. The visitors called themselves the Vaktar. They were an old and powerful people, older than anything we had ever built. They had crossed the stars long before humans had learned to fly, and they had learned one important lesson along the way. Before you deal with a new species, you must first find out how afraid they are. That was their method. It was not cruel by their standards. It was simply how they worked. They would arrive at the edge of new territory and make a small show of strength. Nothing that could kill. Nothing that could truly destroy. Just enough to make a new species feel small, so that whatever came next, talks, trade, or orders, would come easily. Fear, to them, was not a weapon. It was a tool for measuring. On that morning, 6 of their small dark ships came low over our eastern settlement. That was where the children played. I do not think it was planned that way. I think the pilot simply saw an open field and decided it looked convenient. One of them, a young officer eager to prove something, decided to give what he called a demonstration. He fired one shot. It was not meant to hit anyone. It struck the open ground, sending up a burst of green light and a crack of sound so loud it felt like the sky itself had split open. The blast was close enough that the heat should have reached the children's faces. It was close enough that any grown person watching would have felt their heart stop. I was far away when it happened, maybe 300 meters, helping with supply crates near the storage building. When I heard the sound, I dropped what I was holding and ran faster than I have ever run in my life. I hope I never have to run like that again. When I reached the field, what I found was not what I expected. 11 small children stood together near the smoking crater, staring at it with wide eyes and open mouths. But it was not fear on their faces. It was wonder. My daughter Mira turned to me the moment she saw me, her cheeks pink with excitement, and pointed at the settling smoke. "Mama, do it again! Pretty!" Behind her, a boy named Dax was running in circles, laughing, trying to catch the last glowing sparks as they faded into the air, as if they were fireflies on a summer evening. I stood there frozen, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my ears, and I did not know whether to cry from fear or laugh from relief. In the end, I did a little of both. The Vaktar did not know what to make of this. I learned much later, through the official records shared during the peace talks, that the readings from that scout ship were sent back and flagged within minutes, not because anything had gone wrong with their weapon, because of what their instruments recorded from the children. Their system was built on thousands of years of experience. Across every world they had visited, young ones exposed to a sudden burst of danger close by showed the same pattern: fast heartbeat, fear in the eyes, freezing in place, or running away crying. Our children's heartbeats were fast too, but not from fear, from excitement. That difference, small as it seemed, caused something close to alarm among the officers watching from orbit. The patrol leader, a Vaktar named Thresgula, requested an urgent meeting with someone from our colony leadership. That happened to be me, since I served as the settlement's contact person for outside matters. I did not mention right away that Mira was my daughter. I wanted to see what he would say first. Thresgula arrived at our gates the next day, dressed in formal armor, with 2 guards beside him. I think he expected to walk into a colony full of frightened people, ready to agree to anything, just to avoid another demonstration. Instead, he found something very different. Word had spread through the settlement that the light show visitors might be coming back, and half the children in the colony were pressed against the fence, waving at the newcomers, hoping to see another green flash in the sky. I watched something shift behind Thresgula's 4 dark eyes. It was not anger. It looked more like confusion, maybe even a little worry. "Your young ones," he said slowly. his translator device crackling with each word. Do not understand danger. They understand it fine, I told him. They just do not let it control them. He tilted his head, and I could tell he did not understand what I meant, so I tried to explain, though I was still shaking a little from the day before, and trying at the same time to keep Mira from climbing over the fence to get a closer look at him. I told him something that every human parent already knows deep down, even if we rarely say it out loud. Our people have never lived in a world without danger. Long before we built cities or ships, we lived with storms that could sweep away everything, animals that hunted in the dark, winters that could freeze the breath in your chest. Over thousands and thousands of years, we learned something important. Fear that freezes you gets you killed. But fear that you can laugh at, fear you can face with a joke or a song, is fear you can survive. Somewhere along the way, laughing in the face of danger stopped being strange. It became one of the ways we stayed alive. I do not think I explained it as clearly as I wanted to, not in that first conversation. I was too tired, too shaken, too busy watching my daughter try to escape my grip. But I said enough that Threscula understood there was something here worth studying more carefully. He asked, almost nervously, if it would be possible to see the reaction again. Not as a threat this time, he explained, but as something closer to a real question. Would the children respond the same way a second time, or had the first reaction simply been confusion? Against my better judgment, and only after long discussions with the other parents and colony leaders, we agreed to a second, much smaller demonstration. It would be far weaker than the first, done in an open field, with every parent standing close by, and every safety measure in place that we could think of. When the small burst of light appeared in the sky above the field, far gentler than before, Mira clapped her hands together with delight. Dax, standing beside her, shouted out a request for the light to be pink next time. Threscula stood watching this with his guards, completely still, as if his whole understanding of how young minds are supposed to work had just been turned upside down. Over the following weeks, more meetings followed. Word of what happened at Kesvarn had already reached higher officers within the Vokhtar fleet, and they were eager to understand what they had found. I sat through long conversations, translator devices humming between us, trying to help them make sense of something that, to us, felt almost too simple to explain. I told them about how our children grow up hearing stories of brave people facing terrible things and finding a way through, not by being fearless, but by finding small moments of laughter, even in the hardest times. I told them about how, throughout our history, humans have often turned to jokes and stories in the darkest days, not because we did not understand how serious things were, but because laughter helped us keep going when everything else felt heavy. One of the older Vokhtar officers, listening through the translator, said something that stayed with me for a long time. He said his people had studied fear in hundreds of species, but they had never studied laughter as a form of strength. To them, laughter was simply something joyful, separate from danger, separate from survival. The idea that a species might laugh precisely because of danger and grow stronger for it was completely new to them. I later saw a translated copy of Threscula's official report, shared with us as part of the growing trust between our two peoples. One line from that report was eventually printed on a small plaque that still hangs today in our settlement hall, where every visitor can read it. It said that our species showed no clear connection between displays of danger and giving in to fear, especially among our youngest members. It recommended that our people no longer be seen as simple or easy to control, but instead be treated with careful attention and respect, since our reactions did not follow patterns they understood. It ended with a line that made many of us smile when we first read it, that our children found wonder in their weapons, and that they were unsure what kind of people such children would grow up to become. The Vokhtar never attacked Kesvarn. They never attacked any human colony after that, not that year, and not for a long time afterward. I think word of what happened spread quickly through their fleet, the way stories do, especially strange ones that nobody can quite explain. There is something about an unknown pattern that makes even the boldest planners more careful. Instead of conflict, slow talks began. They were not always easy, and there were many misunderstandings along the way, but they were talks, not threats. Over time, small trades started, then shared knowledge, then, much later, something that almost looked like friendship, cautious and careful, but real. I think about that day often, even now, years later. Mira is 7 years old. She still remembers what she calls the green fireworks, though she does not fully understand that it was meant as a warning, a test to see if our people would give up everything without a fight. Sometimes, in the evening, she asks me if the man with the flat face and 4 eyes will come to visit again. She remembers him as kind, mostly because he once knelt down to her height during one of the later meetings and let her look closely at the strange patterns on his armor. I tell her that maybe he will visit again someday, and I tell her that if he does, she should smile at him. After all, it worked the first time. There is a strange kind of comfort in knowing that something as simple as a child's laughter changed the course of 2 people's meeting for the first time. It was not a clever plan. No one designed it that way. It happened because our children are exactly who they are, curious, brave without knowing it, finding joy in things they do not yet understand to fear. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if that first shot had been aimed differently, or if our children had reacted the way the Vaktar expected. Would we have surrendered quietly, the way so many other worlds apparently had before us? Or would we have found another way to stand our ground? I do not have an answer to that question, and I am glad I never had to find out. What I do know is this. On a quiet morning, on a small colony far from the world where humanity began, a group of frightened parents ran toward danger to protect their children, and found instead a group of laughing toddlers chasing sparks of light across an open field. That single moment, small and strange as it was, changed everything that came after. And somewhere out among the stars, in the records of a powerful and ancient people, there is now a permanent note, carefully written, warning anyone who reads it never to underestimate a species whose children can find wonder in the middle of fear.